Hello. So in this video we're going to talk about the poetry of Nazim Hikmet. So Hikmet is a really significant 20th century Turkish poet, socialist poet, and prison poet. He was a socialist and he was a social reformer who wanted to liberalize Turkey. He wanted to contribute to sort of international socialism and build a sort of cosmopolitan, unified world. And he was sent to prison for his political beliefs, his political and revolutionary activities. And so a lot of his poetry reflects those themes. So I'm gonna share a couple of bits. One poem in whole and one poem just in part that I think really sort of encapsulate these ideas very easily, or very directly. So this is a very short poem, which I really do like. It's called Because. They'll go to the moon and beyond, to places even telescopes can't see. But when will no one go hungry on earth, or fear others, or push them around, shun them, or steal their hope? Because I respond to this question, I'm called a communist. So again, that sort of sense of a longing for justice, a longing for the humane treatment of others, a longing for equality and a fair and just distribution of resources is really central to Hikmet's overall ethical structure. And we can see this as well. I want to read you the introduction in the first section of a poem called Istanbul House of Detention. It's a decently lengthy poem, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I think this is a brilliant sort of opening portion to a poem as well. So, Istanbul House of Detention. In the Istanbul detention house yard on a sunny winter day after rain, as clouds, red tiles, walls, and my face trembled in puddles on the ground, I, with all that was bravest and meanest in me, strongest and weakest, I thought of the world, my country, and you. 1. My love, they're on the march, heads forward, eyes wide open, the red glare of burning cities, crops trampled, endless footsteps, and people slaughtered, like trees and calves, only easier and faster. My love, amid these footsteps and this slaughter, I sometimes lost my freedom, bread, and you, but never my faith in the days that will come out of the darkness, screams and hunger, knocking on our door with hands full of sun. I love that. I love that bit. But this is one of the things that I find really, really endearing about Hikmet's poetry is, even though he was a socialist under a fairly conservative political regime, and even though he was jailed repeatedly for his political beliefs, he has this boundless optimism that the world is going to get better. This idea, I never lost my faith in the days that will come out of the darkness, screams and hunger, knocking on our door with hands full of sun. That idea, and again, we saw it as well in Because, that idea that the world can be better, the world can be more fair, it can be more just, and the future is open to these possibilities. That's deeply, deeply ingrained in Hikmet's poetry, and we can see that even, I think, in his poems that are more depressed, his poems that are more... I don't think he's ever necessarily hopeless, but he has prison poems are very often tinged with a degree of hopelessness, and he has poems that are more in that line. But even then, I don't think he ever really gives up hope for the future being better and for a just world to be built. But there's also this idea of working for justice, working for a better world, working for the common good, shows up even in poems that aren't explicitly political. And so one of the other ones of his that I love is one of his I don't want to say non-political poems, but one that's not directly political. It's called On the Matter of Romeo and Juliet. It's no crime to be Romeo or Juliet. It's not a crime even to die for love. What counts is whether you can be a Romeo or Juliet. I mean, it's all a question of your heart. For instance, fighting at the barricades or going off to explore the North Pole or testing a new serum in your veins, would it be a crime to die? It's no crime to be Romeo or Juliet. It's not a crime even to die for love. You fall head over heels in love with the world, but it doesn't know you're alive. You don't want to leave the world, but it will leave you. I mean, just because you love apples, do apples have to love you back? I mean, if Juliet stopped loving Romeo, or if she'd never loved him, would he be any less a Romeo? It's no crime to be Romeo or Juliet. It's no crime even to die for love. So again, this is not an overtly political poem, although there's the references to fighting at the barricades and testing a serum and things like this. But even here, this refrain of, it's not a crime even to die for love, this is very clearly in the poem linked to selflessness, even to self-sacrifice and things like this. You fall head over heels in love with the world. So that idea of loving others, loving the community, loving those around you and wanting what's best for them, and even being willing to sacrifice yourself for what's best for them, it's still got this deeply utopian, sort of political edge to it, even though the poem itself is not really overtly political. So again, that for me is the thing that I love so much about Hikmet's poetry, is his unstoppable optimism, his faith that humanity fundamentally is good, is fundamentally capable of improving the world and making the world a better place.